Hello everyone and welcome back! We're off to the land of cute tubby little birds and an annoying bug and lots of running around. So have you heard about the Sword of Ditto? I'm going to be honest, I have not vanquished the evil overlord in the Sword of Ditto. And I guess I haven't beaten the game in that traditional sense, but I have spent 7 long hours over 3 runs of the game and met more than one frustrating demise, and I've done a brief 4th cooperative run. And I think I've seen all there is to see, and maybe I should try to give it another shot to beat the big bad evil, but guys, I just don't really want to slog through another toy dungeon, or to roll around in these big spaces and to grind my way back to relevancy. Now, this review of the Sword of Ditto is with the Timeless update, which was added post-launch in 2018. And this is really significant. The Timeless update fundamentally, I think, changes the game because at launch, there was a time restriction on basically every mode that you played in the Sword of Ditto original launch, and the Timeless update has altered it, so you only really face that time restriction when you play at the highest difficulty. I played the game on normal mode, so I was free to dick around for as long as I possibly wanted, and again, I didn't reach that time limit until level 7. So that's what the Timeless update added, and this review is in that lens of that Timeless update. And if you haven't been able to guess already, the Sword of Ditto is a permadeath roguelite. Some folks have compared it to Zelda, and I think that's kind of apt in some ways. You have a collection of little doodad toys, and you hack at the tall grass for coins, and you put bombs in the cracks in the walls of dungeons, and you explore little dungeons, and so on. It seems very Zelda-esque, except when you die, you're dead. There's some exceptions, and as in any roguelite, there's a host of gameplay systems that exist beneath the hood that you don't really get exposed to until you start exploring, start killing bosses, and start dying. The Sword of Ditto is no exception to this mantra. The narrative of the game, in short, is you live in the land of Ditto, sometimes Dittochester, sometimes Dittoville. It's under the tyrannical reign of Mormo. Mormo is a mean lady with lots of monsters, and we are the legendary Sword of Ditto, destined to fight Mormo every century until we eventually vanquish her. There's some lore stuff going on in the background about the Ether Sworn and kings and queens, but it has really no bearing on the plot. It's mere puffery, if you would. But that's fine, right? Like, we're just here to kick ass and take names, right? Sure. Yeah. Huh. Cool. You might notice that the art style and the environmental design has this cutesy Saturday morning cartoon quality. It's fresh and inviting and different, and probably where most of the charm of the game resides. The writing to me was a little ham-fisted and annoying. I didn't think it was very funny or clever most of the time, except when we got to interact with some of the non-human characters. In fact, I wish every character in the game could have just been one of these non-human characters. But anyways, right, back to kicking ass, because that's what we're here for, right? And I really wish that kicking ass in the Sword of Ditto was just more fun. The fact that most of the time the combat wasn't fun was probably why I found the Sword of Ditto to be such a slog. Now, as always, your mileage may vary, but I just didn't have any fun with the combat system. You have a sword, and you have some doodads, and you whack a whack whack, and then you do a lot of rolling around, but I don't know. I just expected something more engaging. There is a variety of enemy types that keep you kind of guessing throughout the game, but I was often bored in combat. Whether it was because I figured out how good the bow was, or because I played the majority of my time with the Sword of Ditto as the flaming sword lady, and like seriously guys, just for a second, if you're feeling frustrated at any time with the Sword of Ditto, like the fire proc in this game is insane. And I think that's why I found most of the combat like very straightforward and almost simplistic, because it was very, very easy when you were doing fire damage all the time. I kept wanting more out of combat. The unlockable toys didn't do it for me. Unlocking the new sword moves didn't do it for me. The boss fights were uninspiring, and I think maybe I was just unfortunate that I often had the same boss repeated to me. The boss fights felt more gimmicky than anything. I didn't get satisfaction out of a victory basically at any time in the game because nothing felt particularly clever or challenging, and I wasn't invested in the rewards at all either, so there was really no motivation to keep going other than some sense of obligation. The sticker system is like the RPG-ness of this game, but most of the stickers are just like, here's an upgrade to your defense, here's some health regeneration, maybe some of the stuff kind of do interesting things, like you get a roll for longer, or you get a spin attack by holding X. But we've kind of seen this all before, and like, maybe I was just really starting to get bored. The weapon upgrades were just like, do more damage, or add some elemental effects to the toy. Maybe this game just wasn't for me. I think combat also becomes more problematic or less enjoyable because like exploring is a real pain in the ass. It's some weird combination of how big each zone is, or how slow you move, or how you have to backtrack and retrace your steps, and sometimes like the odd placement of kazoos where they would be very concentrated in some areas but then very spread out in others, so you'd have to go back and move through these big areas. So like the fast travel system wasn't always perfect. I don't know. I think movement through a game is really important when exploration becomes a part of the gameplay system, and here movement was a slog, which made exploring less fun. And since exploration bookends almost all of the combat sequences, the lack of enjoyment bled across each of these different spaces. But I will admit, like, there were moments that kind of really did shine. Some of the puzzles to me felt really clever, particularly with the boomerang record toy. Some of the fights that involved switching between blue zones and red zones were like strategic, but all of this was fairly far and few between. To some, you might not notice that the movement was slow and the exploration was fine, which might make the combat more interesting or more engaging. Maybe you won't notice, maybe exploring the Dittoverse looks fun regardless of how laborious it felt. But I want to give you an honest take. I think you have to really be a fan of roguelites to dabble into the Sword of Ditto. I tried playing the game on the couch with my cat to get a feel for the co-op mode, but honestly, he wasn't having a good time, so I didn't really want to keep him there. I had to play most of Ditto solo, and honestly the game wasn't really that different whether I played solo or otherwise. I really admire what Sword of Ditto wants to do. I think the style is charming and some parts of the game have a good variety of stuff. And a part of me wants to play it how it was originally designed, with that very strict and harsh time limit in mind. But honestly, I can't just bring myself to come back and start afresh in the land of Ditto. So overall, this receives a negative score from Questmarker. If you're looking for a couch co-op game to play with your bud, like, maybe give this a try. Maybe you'll have a different experience than I did. If you really like the art style, you might look past the boring gameplay. And if you're a die-hard roguelite fan, maybe you'll just want to add Sword of Ditto to your collection. But for me, I'm looking ahead and leaving the land of Ditto behind.